The missing guest at Pinewood Lodge, a hidden tunnel, solved everything. Nestled in the thick forests of southern Oregon, about 10 miles outside the quiet town of New Briar, sat Pinewood Lodge, a modest, weather-worn two-story hotel that had stood for nearly 60 years. It had served as a hunter's retreat in the 70s, a family summer lodge in the 80s, and eventually, by 2021, a rustic hideaway for nature photographers, solo travelers, and the occasional drifter seeking quiet. It had no website, no digital check-in, and no Wi-Fi in the rooms. Just a wooden counter, a wall of keys, and the dull hum of the woods beyond. On October 3, 2021, Ethan Wallace checked into room 8. Ethan was 32, a wildlife photographer from Portland, known online for his moody landscapes and breathtaking close-ups of animals in their natural habitat. His Instagram, @WildByWallace, had over 75,000 followers and a stream of calm, reflective captions about conservation, silence, and patience. He often traveled alone, sleeping in tents or tucked-away lodges. This trip was no different. He had posted a photo of a foggy ridgeline just 2 days before his disappearance with the caption, "The forest doesn't whisper, it waits." According to the handwritten guest log, he checked in at 5:46 p.m. The lodge's aging security system, consisting of 3 motion-detecting cameras in the lobby, stairwell, and rear exit, captured Ethan arriving, exchanging a few words with the front desk manager, and walking up the stairs. At 5:53 p.m., he unlocked room 8. The door closed behind him. That was the last time anyone saw Ethan Wallace. The next morning, a housekeeper knocked on room 8 to ask if he needed towels. No response. She assumed he was out shooting, which wasn't unusual for guests. It wasn't until 3 days later, on October 6th, that the lodge's manager, June Ellerby, began to worry. "I noticed his car was still in the same spot," June later said in a police interview. A dark blue Subaru hadn't moved since he arrived. "That's when I checked the room." She used her master key to unlock room 8. Everything inside was neatly arranged. Backpack on the floor, camera case open on the desk, clothes folded in the closet, wallet and ID on the nightstand. The bed was made. No sign of struggle, but no sign of Ethan either. What baffled authorities was that the door had been locked from the inside with the manual bolt. The only window, overlooking a steep wooded slope, was shut and latched. There was no second door, no signs of forced entry. It was, to quote the first sheriff on the scene, a sealed box. The search began quietly. At first, deputies thought Ethan might have wandered off into the woods and gotten lost, a not uncommon occurrence in the dense Oregon backcountry. By October 8th, a full search and rescue operation was underway. Dogs, drones, and more than 40 volunteers combed a 2-mile radius around the lodge. The forest was damp, full of thick underbrush and sudden drops. But there was no blood, no broken branches, no trail. Detective Lauren Merritt, with the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, was assigned to lead the case. "He didn't take anything," she told a reporter. "No jacket, no wallet, not even his phone. That room was pristine. If he left on his own, he meant to come back. But he didn't." For 10 days, the investigation stalled. Then, on October 17th, something was found. In the lodge's boiler room, a dim, dusty space beneath the lobby where old water pipes hissed and heaters clicked. Maintenance worker Clive Jensen noticed something odd. While inspecting a leak behind the furnace, he tapped on a wall panel and heard a hollow sound. Peeling away the warped wood, he revealed a narrow passage, just wide enough for a person to crouch and crawl through. The tunnel ran about 40 feet, sloping slightly downward, carved crudely into earth and reinforced with rotting beams. Halfway through, searchers found fragments of a torn shirt. A few feet further, a cracked smartphone, screen shattered, caked in mud. It was Ethan's. And on that phone, in the photo app, a single image taken at 2:04 a.m. on October 4th. It was grainy and dark, lit only by the faint blue of a flashlight. The photo showed the tunnel stretching out in front of the camera, and, at the far end, a blurry silhouette of a tall, thin figure barely visible. They weren't facing the camera. They seemed to be waiting. Ethan was not in the frame. The discovery of the tunnel changed everything. Suddenly, what had been treated as a lost person case became something far darker. Detectives cordoned off the lodge, turning the boiler room into a crime scene. Forensics teams descended on the tunnel, dusting for prints, collecting samples, and photographing every inch. The photo on Ethan's phone, dubbed "figure in the police file," circulated internally. The image wasn't clear enough to identify features. Just a silhouette, tall, straight-backed, unmoving. Ethan's family was notified. His sister, Miranda Wallace, arrived from Seattle on October 20th. "I was holding out hope," she said later in an interview. "You know, maybe he got disoriented. Maybe he wandered off and someone took him in. But when I saw the picture, I knew Ethan didn't just get lost." More eerie evidence trickled in. Around the spot where the phone was found, searchers uncovered muddy footprints, partial, distorted by the damp soil. Forensics confirmed they were a men's size 11. Ethan wore a 9. Then, on October 25th, 22 days after Ethan vanished, his body was found. He was discovered by a pair of hikers near Carver's Hollow, a thick patch of state land about 3 miles southeast of the lodge. His body was face down in a clearing, curled slightly, as if trying to sleep. He had no shoes. His socks were soaked and torn. His head had suffered blunt force trauma, enough to kill him instantly. No signs of a struggle.
No defensive wounds.
Just one powerful blow. In his front pocket was a small, folded scrap of paper. The writing on it was shaky, faint, and likely smudged by water. But it read, "I didn't come here alone." The press seized on the mystery. The Oregonian ran the headline, "Photographer found dead after vanishing in sealed room. What happened at Pinewood Lodge?" Cable networks followed suit, spinning theories about the tunnel, the note, and the figure in the photograph. Online forums ignited with speculation. Was Ethan investigating something? Could the lodge be a front for something darker? Maybe he found something he wasn't supposed to. Detective Merritt addressed the press tersely. "We are treating this as a homicide. There are no suspects at this time, but the investigation is active." Still, she later admitted in a podcast interview that the case haunted her. There was something wrong with that place, not just the tunnel. The whole lodge felt off, like it was trying to keep secrets. Pinewood Lodge had changed ownership several times over the decades, but its original structure remained intact. That boiler room had existed since 1962. Old blueprints, faded and hand-drawn, showed no tunnel. But when investigators consulted local historians, one name kept appearing: Cyrus Fennick. Cyrus had owned the lodge in the early 1970s. A Vietnam vet with a background in mining, he had reportedly lived in the building year-round, doing all maintenance himself. There were rumors of bootlegging, some whispered talk of strange noises from the basement, but no official record of anything illicit. He died in 1984. No surviving relatives. No estate records. But then something else came to light. A former guest named Eleanor Langley came forward. She had stayed in room 7, right next to Ethan's, back in 1994. She told detectives she remembered something odd. There was this hum at night, real low like machinery. I asked the front desk what it was, and the guy told me I was imagining it. But I wasn't. It sounded like someone was moving beneath the floors. Investigators returned to the lodge with ground-penetrating radar. They found more tunnels. The second tunnel was discovered behind the storage wall adjacent to the boiler room, cleverly hidden beneath stacked paint cans and folded tarps. Unlike the first, which was raw and damp, this one was reinforced with wood panels and old metal piping. It extended farther, nearly 80 feet, twisting eastward beneath the forest floor. At the far end, searchers found a hatch, rusted shut. When pried open, it revealed a narrow crawlspace that led directly beneath room 8. And there, carved crudely into the subflooring, was a 2-foot square panel with old hinges and a latching mechanism, sealed from below. It had been covered on the room side with thin carpeting and wood planks, making it indistinguishable from the floor above. Whoever built it knew exactly what they were doing. "We realized right then," said Detective Merritt, "that Ethan didn't leave room 8. Someone came in from below." The mechanics were chillingly simple. The person had entered the tunnel through the boiler room, crawled beneath the floor, quietly unlatched the panel, and emerged silently into room 8. No need to break locks. No broken windows. Just a shadow rising from beneath the floor. Forensics revisited the room. Under the bed frame, they found scuff marks and dirt consistent with someone crawling out of the hatch. On the bottom edge of the desk drawer, a smudged fingerprint was lifted, too distorted for identification, but the first sign of a second person in the room. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle. Ethan may have been taken by surprise, or perhaps threatened into silence. Toxicology revealed small traces of lorazepam in his system, enough to sedate, not to kill. It suggested premeditation. But then the investigation stalled again. No DNA match.
No suspects.
No new leads, until someone else came forward. His name was Jeremy Colton, a retired forest ranger who had lived in New Briar for over 30 years. He walked into the sheriff's office holding an envelope and a worn photograph. The envelope contained a map of the Pinewood area, hand-drawn in red ink, with multiple X marks. One circled and labeled, Old Well Entrance, sealed in '89. The photograph showed a group of men in their 20s, standing in front of Pinewood Lodge. One of them was young Cyrus Fennick. Another, tall, broad-shouldered, with a deep scar down his left cheek, was circled. This man, Jeremy said, pointing, was not from here. He stayed a few weeks back in '89. After that, the place was never the same. Jeremy claimed the man's name was Russell Kane, a drifter who had passed through town under a different name, possibly connected to a series of break-ins in the northern counties. He'd stayed in room 8, just like Ethan. And after he left, guests began reporting strange noises, missing items, and that ever-present hum beneath the floorboards. Then one day he vanished. Just like that. No checkout. No sightings. Jeremy believed Russell had stayed behind, underground. He was the type that'd dig a hole and live in it, Jeremy muttered. I told the old sheriff back then, but nobody believed me. The theory was wild, that someone, Russell or otherwise, had been living beneath the lodge for decades, using the tunnels, watching guests, waiting for the right one. It was impossible to confirm, but the path forward was suddenly clearer. Police excavated the entire lower crawlspace system, uncovering a total of 4 tunnel arms, 2 leading to outside forest exits, 1 beneath the guest rooms, and 1 to the rear staff hallway. And then they found it, a hidden room. It was no larger than a walk-in closet, carved out of dirt and reinforced with metal mesh. Inside were old food wrappers, a sleeping bag, weathered notebooks, a broken pair of binoculars, and a stash of what looked like stolen guest belongings. Watches, earrings, a half-melted smartphone, even a keychain that Miranda Wallace later identified as Ethan's. The notebooks were damp and barely legible, written in an erratic scrawl. They weren't signed, but the entries chilled investigators. They never know I'm there. Some of them are loud. I hate the loud ones. The man in 8 has cameras. He sees too much. It's time. The final entry was dated October 3, 2021, the day Ethan Wallace checked in. The lodge was evacuated the next morning. By order of the sheriff's department, Pinewood Lodge was closed indefinitely. Crime scene tape sealed every entrance. Deputies remained posted at the site as forensic teams hauled out soil samples, personal items, and the decaying remnants of the hidden lair. Inside the notebooks, one more detail stood out. A crude hand-drawn map on the back of one page mirrored the lodge's layout. The rooms were numbered inaccurately, some crossed out, some underlined. Room 8 was circled 3 times. Scrawled beside it, in shaky ink, were the words, "He asked too many questions." Miranda Wallace returned to the lodge one last time, escorted by Detective Merritt. She was quiet, composed, but her eyes lingered in every hallway. When they entered room 8, she stood in the middle of the floor, staring down at the patch of carpet that had covered the hatch. "This is where he died," she said. "Even if he didn't die here, this is where it started." Detective Merritt asked her if Ethan had mentioned anything unusual before his trip. Miranda thought for a moment. He was fascinated by abandoned places. He'd been researching shuttered resorts and old hunting lodges in Oregon. He said he wanted to do a photo series, called it Places That Forgot People. She swallowed. I think this place forgot something else. Something worse. In early November, just days after Miranda's visit, DNA results came back on one of the found items in the tunnel. A toothbrush, tucked inside a small nylon bag buried beneath a pile of rags. The DNA did not match Ethan, but it did match a cold case profile, Russell Kane. The same drifter Jeremy Colton had identified in the 1989 photo. Kane's name had been linked to 2 disappearances in Idaho in the late 80s, though nothing had ever been proven. The man had vanished without a trace over 30 years ago until now. The evidence pointed to a shocking conclusion. Russell Kane had been living under Pinewood Lodge for decades, surviving in the tunnels, watching the guests above, waiting. But there was one more twist. In one of the hidden room's corners, partially buried under a loose floorboard, officers found a cracked Polaroid. It showed a young Ethan Wallace, 6 or 7 years old, standing in front of a forest trailhead. The location was unclear, but the handwriting on the back read, Wallace Family Hike, Summer '96. How had Kane gotten that photo? Miranda confirmed it had gone missing from a family album years ago. They had camped in the Pinewood region during the summer of 1996, just once, when Ethan was a child. Are you saying this man was following him for 25 years? She asked, stunned. Detective Merritt couldn't answer. All they knew was that Ethan hadn't come here alone. With mounting evidence, the state prepared to charge Kane, posthumously, with homicide. But there was one problem. Russell Kane's body was never found. Despite extensive excavation, the tunnel systems ended abruptly near the forest's edge. No remains. No signs of escape. The latest theory? That Kane either fled upon discovery or died deep in the forest long ago. His tunnels maintained by someone else. Some believed there were accomplices. Others thought the man in the photo, the tall figure Ethan had captured, was not Kane but a successor. Copycat. No one could say for sure. In March 2022, Pinewood Lodge was demolished. Trees were planted in its place. A small plaque stands at the edge of the woods, marking the site of Ethan Wallace's disappearance. In memory of those who see the world through quiet eyes. Ethan Wallace, 1989 to 2021. But online, the mystery lives on. Every few months, another photo surfaces. A hiker in Oregon spots strange impressions in the dirt. A guest at a remote cabin hears knocking beneath their floor. A wildlife camera captures a tall, shadowy figure at the tree line, always watching. And on Ethan's Instagram page, frozen since October 3rd, his final post still gathers comments. The forest doesn't whisper. It waits.